Alex here with part 5 of the Respondent. Also, like chapter 4, this is corresponding to chapter 5, and it's also a very long chapter. Again, a lot of it is fluff, but because it was such a long chapter, I ended up getting quite a bit that I could actually comment on, and even a little bit that I could relate to. So, in the beginning, he continues to point out that he's not getting any empathy from his wife. He doesn't have permission to enter his house. He's been told that security will arrest him if he tries. He starts to talk a little bit about, I guess you could call, he refers to it as entrapment or something like that, where his wife realizes he's getting out or has gotten out, and she goes to the police department and she gets a restraining order slash order of protection. And it comes up later that he just didn't know that any of that had happened, because we'll go into that in a second. So he ends up going and finding his way into this guy Brian's house. He has permission to be there, so gets in there, finds out that his neighbor Brian and this friend of his are drinking themselves under the table or something like that. And when these guys get drunk and either leave, the friend maybe leaves, passes out, Brian needs to pass out, he decides to take Brian's phone. And he calls his wife with Brian's phone. And this is the first mistake that he makes, because she tells him, she kind of strings him along for an hour or so. I guess somehow she needs to do that for the police. She keeps him on the phone for an hour. She just placates him for as long as she can. He talks about trying to get her to go to therapy with him to fix their marriage, which is a terrible idea. And I talk about this in the video, um, Stop Believing the Liar. I'm not saying for sure that he's been lied about left and right. I don't know. But he, from his perspective, does feel that way. He, from his perspective, is saying that she's betrayed him and that she's locked him up in this facility when he's not supposed to be there and all that. This is like such an obvious sign of a dysfunctional relationship, where people can do such treacherous things to each other, and then they can think, oh, well, we got to fix this. Those things are so beyond normal. And I talk about that in this in Stop Believing the Liar. It's just completely insane to try to stay with somebody in that kind of situation. Once somebody is trying to use the legal apparatus to ruin your life, there's no coming back from that. And I talk about that in Stop Believing the Liar. It was one of my earlier videos, because I've noticed that so many people make this mistake. Um, anyway, she keeps him on the phone. All of a sudden, police are banging on the door at midnight, and he realizes what she's done. He opens the door. The police grab him. They handcuff him, and there's a police confrontation. So there is, I guess, what he calls, I don't know what word he uses, whether it's ironic or what, but to be standing one house away from his own house in handcuffs because his wife got a restraining order and he's not allowed to go in his own house, even though it's like 20 feet away from him. He talks about this in the sense of like to try and, I guess, shock the reader. But to me, this is where the red flag went up. I'm like, why, out of all those people, would you go and live one house away from your own house, knowing that this other person has built a narrative that you're a dangerous person? And I talk about this in the video separation phase. It's a bad idea to stay in your own house when you're getting these kinds of allegations. And the reason why is because they're going to use them in court. And I know a lot of people think it's not fair, because it's not fair. It actually is not fair that you can't stay in your own house because the other person's a liar. But whether you think it's fair or not, what's going to happen is it's going to be used in court against you as ammunition. And the attorney that your ex hires doesn't need to convince the judge that the truth is the truth. They just need to dupe the judge into thinking that they're hearing the truth. And so the more plausible the story is, the more likely they are going to be able to deceive the court into believing the lie. It's just safer to make it as difficult as possible for them to dupe the court into believing a lie. So now I'm saying this is a red flag, but I also want to say, there is a chance, I guess, that this is not I don't know. I mean, guys, it's tough. When somebody's lying about you and they've had you locked up or thrown in a mental health place, the last thing that I would want to do is go one house away, because then my thought immediately is going to be, hey, he's stalking me. See, this is proof. Look, he just got out and he's in my neighbor's house now. That's exactly what I would suspect would happen. Anyway, he talks about how he wasn't going to leave. He had the right to be there, even if she has a restraining order. And he talks about the savior of a cop that comes and steps between him and the sergeant who is like, I guess, white knighting him or something. And this cop savior walks up and calms things down, and everything is fine. I can relate to this because I didn't have that exact sort of situation happen, but I do remember there was a police officer named Officer Coffee, who put together a really good police report that I ended up using, that actually exposed a bunch of my ex's contradictions. So I kind of had the same situation in my case, even though I don't even remember what he looks like. I don't remember talking to him. I just remember reading this report and thinking, oh my goodness, Officer Coffee actually figured it out. So, yeah, whoever you are, if you ever watch this video, thanks a bunch. Um, Interacting with neighbors and friends. He talks about how his wife apparently went and contacted all of these people, all of his friends, to tell them that he was a crazy person and he was in this mental health place and all that. And this is kind of where I was going to lead into the he started cutting off friends, because he cut off the original friend who didn't let him stay with him, who changed his mind. And then he does go and he visits a few people, one specifically that I remember being really emotional, who sided with his ex. He cuts that person off. And that's when he talks about how he did find some friends who were helping him, and how he was talking to them, and they were like, oh yeah, your ex, or your whatever soon to be ex, called me and said she's never going to talk to me again, and cut me off. So I mean, this is a part of the book that I think is relevant, because this is one of the things that happens in these high conflict cases, is alliances are starting to get forged between the two sides, and it leaves terminated relationships all over the place, because the nature of the conflict, it forces people to pick sides. If somebody tries to be neutral, typically the more aggressive person is going to cut them off. Not necessarily the targeted parent, but the aggressive parent will cut them off anyway, because their attitude or their thinking is, you're either with me or against me. Um, okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about this. He has like a breakfast with somebody he refers to as a facilitator that he's not being charged for. My understanding is that this facilitator is either working with that friendly doctor or somehow connected to that friendly doctor. But the point that I'm getting is that this quote unquote facilitator is like an expert on how to deal with these situations, and that it's explained to him that he's going to have to choose between hiring a lawyer and going through the family court system, or going to a treatment facility and proactively taking steps to what he calls build a new narrative. So what he's trying to say is that this is very counterintuitive. None of what is being accused of him, none of what his ex is alleging against him is true. Yet at the same time, rather than call all of those things lies, he's going to just show that the small parts of what she was saying that were true are being taken care of, and that he's going to follow this outpatient therapy program and all that to show that he's trying to better his life and deal with his issues. So he uses double speak here to explain that it's counterintuitive. He didn't know that that's what he had to do. He's going to go ahead and do it, but at the same time, all of the allegations are not true. Um, what do I think about this? I don't know. I mean, I've talked about it in The Proper Person, is that my advice was immediately institute legal proceedings, because you don't know what they're going to do while the legal proceedings aren't filed. They could take all your stuff. They could sell everything. They could take all these debts out. They could run off with the kids to another country. And so he's saying, to avoid hiring a lawyer and going to the family court system, he decided to do this other thing. And my other concerns are, well, you could end up in a treatment facility again. I mean, even if it's outpatient, it still could be used against you by your ex. I mean, it would be better to me if he said, hey, the things that my wife accused me of are true. I do have these issues, and I'm going to get better and then go to court showing them that I'm trying to get better. But he doesn't say that. He says that she's lying, yet I'm going to try to get better anyway because this person told me to do this. So, and I'm seeing this again. First, the nurse telling him what to do with the litigation of the actual getting out of the facility, and now his friends telling him what to do. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's tough because he's a super rich person. He's so wealthy and he has all this money, and I don't understand how all these other people are making decisions for him, and I don't understand why he doesn't have an attorney who's a friend. This conversation still has not happened all the way into now chapter 5. So, okay, weird, but I guess in some ways I can kind of understand it. Going into chapter 5, he says that this is where he starts to talk about the financial assault, that's what he calls it, from his ex, that she's cashing checks from a joint account, that she's borrowing money from his friends. And then he says that specifically, he says she's going and telling his friends that he drained all the accounts. And since he drained all the accounts and there's nothing left, she's asking his friends for money because of him draining the accounts. I would normally say that this is crazy sounding, except that that's what my ex did. She went and drained all the accounts. She didn't ask my friends for money, but she did go to the court and say, he drained all the accounts. I'm like, why would you do that? There's paper trails. I didn't understand that at all. And it kind of makes me think that maybe, I mean, I'm here all these years later thinking she can't possibly be that stupid. There's cameras at those ATMs. So I'm thinking maybe she got a friend of hers to take her card and take the money out or something. I really wish I would have pushed this issue in court and gotten to the bottom of it, because definitely wasn't me, and she can't possibly have been that stupid to lie about something that's so provable. So my suspicion is that there was some funny business there going on with the account draining. I don't know how she was doing it, but she felt safe enough to lie and say that I did it. Let's see here. So that's what he's saying his ex is doing. So I mean, it's plausible that she did that. So he talks a little bit about, let's see here. Okay, so here's where he goes into the story. One of the more dangerous stories, I guess, or dangerous examples of what his mom did. He describes how he'd be asleep, and then he'd just be suddenly woken up, snatched out of bed by his mom, taken into the car, and that she'd drive them around for hours, slandering his dad, saying all these bad things about his dad, and that she would inevitably abandon whatever mission she had set out on, go back to the house, and put them back in their bed around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And he talks about how this was jarring and a repetitive experience that would occur with his mom. And he also talks about how one time she peeled out so recklessly that he didn't even have his door closed, and I guess he tumbled out of the car into the street and almost got hit by another car. So he's really trying to point out how terrible his own mother was as a parent. And I guess this is going to be something that continues to come up in the book. Do I find it believable? Yeah, maybe. I mean, especially if he's trying to explain why he himself had so many issues. I mean, it supports his issues, and his choice of a partner supports that maybe he had a bad childhood. So, I mean, it's plausible. He also talks about how he had to keep his family together at all costs, and that this thinking made him make the most serious mistake of all. And in his own words, he says that what he's about to admit to is what should point out to all of us how little he understood about the divorce process. What does he do? He goes to the house. Tries to get in the front door. She says, go away or I'll call the cops. Goes to the back door. It's locked. He smashes a window, opens the back door, goes all the way upstairs to confront his wife. Now, I know that this is something lawyers will have a field day with in court. So I don't even have to go into the other chapters to know that this is probably something that they would never let him hear the end of. And if I would have done something this stupid, I probably would never have been able to get Falcone v. Secretary of State published, because I had to bring a case to the court that was so obnoxiously, obviously one-sided to get them to say, oh my God, what a complete screw up. We have to publish a case. I mean, whether or not this guy is telling the truth that he wasn't dangerous, they're never going to get to the bottom of it. They're just going to say, oh, look, he broke in the back door. He broke some glass. That's it. That's going to be the beginning and the end of any analysis. Nobody's ever going to want to take a risk with this guy because the lawyer is always going to say, "Oh, wait. Remember that one time? There's that one time that he broke a window." I can already see it. It would come up 15 years later. It would you could start your custody case when your child is 1 year old. That'll get brought up when your child is 15. They'll never stop talking about that. So he admits that he was delusional. He admits that he decided to do this because the restraining order was expired. So what? He admits that there was no legal anything that didn't let him into his own house. And it doesn't matter because she ends up getting, I guess, an order that says he's forbidden from ever going into his house again. Though he doesn't go, we're not at family court yet, but he does say that his decision would forever ban him from his own house. So now he legally can't go. At the time, maybe it was okay, but now he can't. And he does talk about how the police came up and grabbed him, threw him in the police car, cuffed him again. And he kind of hints that he's about to end up in jail, but this is the end of the chapter. And so, I guess for now, if you have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments below. And I will see you guys next time.